as our branded glassware. But yeah, obviously COVID kind of put a bit of a halt on those discussions. But yeah, little bits and pieces like that we're always kind of trying to work on.
Yeah. And what we'll do now is we'll move on to a little bit about some of your whiskies. I know quite a few of us in the group and people that I talk to really do love your small batch. It's probably one of the best whiskies out there personally for what you pay for it. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the makeup and, you know, brief and sort of tell us that it's never going away?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, small batch has been absolutely brilliant for us. Yeah, in 70 countries now. It's one of those things that it did really well in the on-trade with bartenders and in cocktails, and it did really well in the off-trade with whiskey fans. You know, it makes a great sipping whiskey and it also makes a great cocktail whiskey. So yeah, it really put us on the map. It got us into a lot of people's hands, got the brand into a lot of people's hands. So yeah, very proud of it being our flagship product. And we love to see more and more experimentations with it. You know, people are making riffs on an Irish coffee in Florida, like a cold brew Irish coffee, and tiki drinks from San Francisco, and like spirit forward drinks in Europe. It's brilliant to see, and brilliant to see so many people have a small batch and still wins awards as a whiskey in and of itself, which is fantastic. The makeup is really important for us as well in terms of our control whiskey. I mentioned it earlier, but the pre-rum small batch blend. Actually, let me talk about small batch and then we'll go back to the pre-rum blend. So small batch is a grain whiskey and a malt whiskey. So 3 parts grain made from corn, non-GMO corn from France, 1 part malt. These are aged separately in ex-bourbon casks for between 4 to 6 years. So again, like we're not worrying about an age statement. We're not waiting for a minimum time. Taste it after 4 years. If it's ready, we'll use it. If it's not, we'll wait. We blend then. And what we mean by small batch is we hand taste those casks. You know, Alex and his team, 4 people, taste every single one of those casks. It's 50 casks, so roughly about 10,000 bottles. So we remake all of the ones that are dated every 18 months. So the Trinity, we're remaking every 18 months or so. So yeah, that's what it means by small batch, that 50 casks is small enough for the team to taste every single one, ensure that it's ready, blend them or hand blend them if you want to call it like that, and then it goes into the Central American rum casks. So think of brands like Florida Canyon, Diplomatico. We don't name the specific rum characteristics anymore, the specific rum companies anymore, because we don't know. They come from a cask wholesale, like a cooperage, you know, someone that the cask brokers that buy the casks from the rums. But first and foremost, it's the style, the Central American style. Secondly, it's the quality. And then every now and then you get one that's stamped. But again, we don't have permission to mention that. But think of those brands: dried fruits, papaya, dried papaya, pineapple, peach, and then an underlying kind of fig, apricot, date. So we did experimentation on finishing. You know, Alex at the previous family distillery would talk to these older distillers and say, you know, do we need an inert cask in order for these 2 separate whiskeys, a grain whiskey and a malt whiskey? Do we need something to allow them to become something new entirely? And their idea was, oh, no, it's got plenty of time to mature and blend in the bottle. So we did experimentation. We put grain whiskey and malt whiskey into glass, into steel, into plastic IBCs, and into wood. And what we found was the woods actually allowed you not only to allow those 2 separate ingredients to become something new, but it also allows you to bookend flavor. So not overpower the blend with something else like a rum cask, but bookend it. So you've still got a core blend there, but it's slowly intermingled. It gives you a nice long finish with some of the rum notes, gives you a super powerful rum raisin nose. So it just extends the whole experience without overpowering it or without completely killing all the work you did with that original blend. So yeah, we did that experiment. It was actually the Irish Whiskey Society that tasted it. Um, what we did with that experimentation was got the Irish Whiskey Society in a room, not on Zoom, unfortunately, but in a room, and then just blind tasting. Just taste these whiskeys, tell us what you think. And being people like yourselves that understand whiskey, there was, I know what this is. I know what this is. This is just port. This is just sherry. This is just an older. Uh, it's obviously been an ex-bourbon for a longer period of time, but a lot of them returned the rum. They're like, "What's this? What's this?" And at that time, there was only one or two brands, I think Balvenie and one other, that were doing rum influences. So it really kind of shone and stood out. And going back to how I started this was that pre-rum small batch blend that we, think of it like twice aged, twice blended, not for the slogan, but it gives you 2 bites of the cherry to make sure that wealth of flavor is there and in the right, it's balanced. So that pre-rum small batch blend has almost become our control whiskey. That same blend goes into all our collaborations. So the Hero cask that I talked about earlier, that Charlie was talking about, the amber ale, the stout cask that you guys are drinking, the pineapple rum, the first plantation, the rum agricole, the ginger beer. So not only are we creating all these interesting and new whiskies, but we're also learning what those casks are doing by using the exact same blend each time as well. Oh, sorry guys. Sorry that someone said to bounce.
Yeah. Don't worry, we can watch it back.
Okay, good. But yeah, so that's why small batch has been so important for us. Is we've made it so many times. We're so used to that blend, that premium blend, that it does a lot of the innovation for us just by being our flagship. And obviously, being a fantastic whiskey, it gets it into people's hands. They taste it. It's not just the cheaper option. Like that's, I think, what can set some people apart. Like they try the cheaper option, and it doesn't immediately, grab them by the. I don't want to use that analogy, but so that they're less likely to drop the 80 quid or so on the more premium one. Whereas small batch is so fantastic. People, that appreciate whiskey appreciate, where it sits in the spectrum of flavor, that they become more trusting of us as a whiskey company to drop their hard-earned money on a Brabazon or a Renaissance or the 24-year-old or something like that. So yeah, it does a lot of work for us on that level. So yeah, I mean, small batch is fantastic.
No, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I mean, small batch is probably the one that put me onto Teeling as a permanent dram. There is always a few bottles in the storage cupboard at the back that are ready to open. I personally, I can't say enough about it. I think it's for what you pay for it, it's as good as anything out there. It's as simple as that. I mean, like you say, age doesn't matter on it. It's not about the age. It's about how it comes across, and it's just perfect. So, full marks from me.
No, yeah, I'm a big fan. Like that was the first one I came across. I opened a bar in Ireland in 2013 called Peruka Periwig. At that time, it seems strange to say now, but at that time, it was one of Ireland's first Irish whiskey-focused cocktail bars. And Jack and Stephen brought it into me. I made, I think my first Teeling small batch cocktail was a Mai Tai, where I subbed out rum, put in small batch, and then did a float of Kraken, of a dark spice rum, and it was such a top seller. And it just it definitely opened my eyes to what Irish whiskey could do. Because I think at that time, the slogan was that Irish whiskey is pointless in cocktails. It's washed away in cocktails, but small batch comes out at 46% ABV, non-chill filtered, so it's heady, it's luxurious, it's velvety. It's bold. It'll stand up to these other cocktail ingredients, and it has something to say as well.
No, I mean, I can't agree more. And I'm sort of waiting for people to want to come in and talk about particular whiskies. So seeing as nobody has, I'm going to ask a bit more about the Brabazon, because obviously I've had 1, 2, and 3 now. I'm just drinking the 3rd one now. Can you tell us something about the history of that and how it came about, and if there's going to be any more after number 3.
Yeah. So the Brabazon series, I've called it the traditional single malts, in that these are 2 whiskies influenced by port and sherry, respectively. So number 1 was a vatted single malt influenced by 6 different sherry casks. Number 2, the same, but 6 different port casks. Then for we weren't going to do a number 3. We were going to do a biannual release. So 1 and then 2, 1 and then 2. But again, like sitting on a shelf, I think again, like that average consumer was just like, I don't understand Brabazon. I barely even can say it. Like I heard a lot of people say, what is the Brabazon? So I think it was a little lost. So I think the redefinition of, it's an age statement single malt influenced by the very well-known sherry and port. So number 3 was a little bit more aligned. It was a sherry finish, but not just your average sherry finish. We went down to Jerez, went to a bodega, and hand selected these fantastic PX Spinola casks. We worked with them a couple of times before we chose the right PX cask. We got an PX brandy cask made from chestnut that we used a couple of times. That was fantastic. One of my favorite whiskeys for a while there. Again, our blend went into that to kind of understand, what that cask would do. And that became our first ever distillery exclusive, which became its own series. So yeah, I mean, we were very happy with that bodega. We were put in touch with them through partners of ours, and we worked with them for a while before we picked, the right sherry casks. And then the same with the Carcavelos. Carcavelos is a style of fortified wine from Portugal. We made the mistake of calling it white port and got into trouble from Portugal. But yeah, it's a white grape fortified wine from Carcavelos in Portugal. Yeah, I mean, a similar cousin, but yeah, super interesting, super unique. And again, went to the bodega, got our hands on hand-selected casks, and yeah, fantastic. Again, we used them a number of times. We did a Carcavelos single cask that went to the US and ended up, I think the MGM company bought up most of them. So the only place you can find that original test run of Carcavelos single cask is at the MGM Grand in Vegas. And yeah, did a bit of work with that. But yeah, going back to the overarching name and reasoning behind it was the Brabazon family were the Earls of Meath. So they kind of controlled the area, for the English anyway, or the landed gentry in the area of the Liberties in Dublin, where the distillery now calls home, was, the Earls of Meath, the Brabazon family. You can see it today. So the head office in Mill Street, behind the distillery, is the Brabazon house. It's where Teeling HQ is. So it would have originally been the home of the Brabazon family. There's Brabazon Lane and different Brabazon named areas of the Liberties. Even the Brabazon family, still reside here in Dublin. They moved down Wicklow way. But this is, again, a bit of a link back to the history, inspired by the past, in an era of distillation in Dublin where maturation wasn't as important. Barrels were just the cardboard box of the era. The whiskey companies, they didn't even bottle their own product. It was the wine merchants that would roll their barrels down to the distillery, get them filled, and then roll them back. And it was just through convenience that they used barrels. It wasn't, whiskey didn't have to be aged in barrels at that time. But very quickly in that era, they learned the barrels that previously held port or sherry that was being imported to satiate the desires of the English gentry that were here. They very quickly learned that those barrels made a far tastier product than barrels that previously held fish or apples or pickles or things like that. So again, like the history of port and sherry barrels in Irish whiskey evolution were important. So yeah, again, a tip of the cap to the past, but a very modern interpretation of the traditional flavors within port and sherry finished single malt.
I mean, I'm drinking the third one now and it's bloody good, but I've just been informed that there is actually a number 4, is there?
Yeah, the Carcavelos that I was talking about. Yeah, that's number 4. So it was released not long ago. Like you're talking a month ago.
Yeah.
I think it's coming into the UK. Again, Brexit has kind of put a huge roadblock there. Again, don't want to talk about that too much, but yeah, I mean, it was scheduled to be uh, on Master of Malta, things like that, but I don't know what happened there. But yeah, we launched it and it sold out pretty
I'm going to
quickly.
say,
Like,
yeah, I've just looked now.
Brabazon
It's
3,
not on.
Brabazon 4 were really popular.
Yeah, I've just looked now, and number 4's not there. So I've got number 3 in the basket again. But
Number
the
3 is
last question,
amazing.
the last question I want to ask, and then we'll see if anybody else wants to come on before we stop recording, and we'll go into chatting off the record. But one thing I'm noticing behind you, and obviously the bottles I've got here, is the ones I've got are all dark glass. I see one clear glass behind you. Is there any reasoning behind the dark glass, or was it just a...
Again, so yeah, the dark glass is dark green. It would have been traditional in Irish whiskey to have those old dark green bottles. So that was obviously, pretty high on the list of priorities. Again, inspired by the past, but a modern bottle design, which, we like the modern bottle design. If you've ever seen some of our Renaissance series and Revival series. But yeah, I mean, when you get something that's just so lovely in color, like the single grain, like the Brabazon 2, these were two that bucked the trend of like, wow, these look fantastic. The color of these, like, again, no coloring in them. They just look fantastic. The single grain was the first, being influenced totally, like fully matured red wine, matured single grain. It has a lovely ruby red color to it. So you can see there, it's fantastic. So to put that in a dark bottle almost seemed like, like a lot of people can say that our whiskeys are on the light side, and we're okay with that. Like the single malt's a great example. It's quite hay and lemon in color. But yeah, I mean, we're fine with that. We don't add coloring to it. But this one, coming out of cask like that, you're like, oh, I don't really want to put that in a dark green bottle. So the lads, picked up clear. They went, can we get a clear bottle of the dark green? And yeah, that's basically what happened. The same happened with the Brabazon too. Again, being in port casks, fully matured port casks for about 16 years. It has a lovely amber ruby red color to it that you, again, don't want to hide in the dark green. So you give it a bottle to make that really pop and stand out. So yeah, that's why we have some clear bottles and some dark bottles.
Yeah. I mean, the whiskey talks for itself. Have we got any questions before we stop the recording, or are we all going to wait till we stop recording as usual? Go on then, Claire. Can't hear you.
It's all right, just getting the mute off. So Kinahans have done a mad experiment with wood and different casks and got their multi-wood cask. Are you, with all the work you guys are doing with wood, are you going to think about doing anything similar, or is it something you're sort of already doing and it's secret?
Yeah, they're called zebra casks. So again, you can do something short of building a cask out of different size staves around the outside, like a zebra stripes.
Yeah.
Another thing you can do to make it a less costly experiment is change the barrel end. So the barrel top is a chestnut or something like that. And then you put the barrel on its side as opposed to upright, like they do in America. So yeah, you can do little things like that, change barrel ends and do zebra staves. And it is something that we've done before. Nothing released yet, but yeah, it's again, a work in progress. Some of the guys are doing zebra casks because, again, like, not a lot of companies want to veer too far away from their DNA, their flavor DNA. So they subtly influence, their core product. Whereas, we're okay with going completely mad. Just this one doesn't taste anything like that one, but they both have the phoenix rising from the ashes on the pots, on the label. So they must be Teeling products.
Thank you.
But yeah, that it's a good way to kind of gauge a sense of what that particular wood does.
Cool.
Of buying a 200-liter chestnut cask, filling it with 200 liters of expensive alcohol, and then just crossing your fingers and
crossed,
hoping,
yeah.
because that can be a very costly experiment if you got it wrong, especially for a small whiskey distillery. So yeah, the zebra cask is a good way to experiment in that regard.
Cool. Thank you.
I mean, one last thing I will just go on to before we do stop recording. I did notice prior to us talking to you, the warehouses you're using all seem to be racked. I take it they are all racked rather than any dunnage, or do you have a bit of both, or is that just really?
Sorry?
So your warehouses, where they're all racked, so stacked high rather than dunnage, where it's
racked. Sorry, yeah. I thought you said wrapped. I was like, what?
No, racked. So it's my Yorkshire accent.
Yes, yeah, they're all racked in, yeah. So it's easier to move them with a forklift on a pallet. They're all palletized.
Yeah.
Yeah, rather than in America, yeah, they're all stored upright. I mean, we don't have to move them or cycle them as much as they do there because, again, the temperate, or the climate here in Ireland and Scotland is a bit more temperate. It doesn't fluctuate so much. So it's more just moving them around. Like you want to get at the ones at the back, especially in the small batch system where you want to taste them. You want to be able to move them and reorder them as much as possible. So having a forklift and palletized cask makes it so much easier to just move the whole warehouse around on a whim and get at the whiskey you need to.
Yep. Right. Any more questions before I stop recording? Nope.